So I'd like to transition us now to our last conversation. The topic is called How to Be Mentored. And so we have two UNLV faculty who are leading this discussion. Dr. Blanca Rincon, who's an assistant professor in the Educational Psychology and Higher Education Department in the College of Education. She recently co-authored as first author an article that has appeared in Journal of Hispanic and Higher Education. The title of it is Latinx Students Charting Their Own STEM Pathways, How Community, Cultural Wealth Informs Their STEM Identity. So shout out to Dr. Rincon on that publication. Dr. Katrina Liu is the Associate Professor in Teaching and Learning. She recently has a book that was published called Critical Reflection for Transformative Learning. I do have my copy. It's published by Springer, so a shout out to Dr. Liu. So I will allow them both to begin.
Today, we are co-presenting our session, and we were thinking a lot about the topic that we were asked to talk about. And we took some time, Dr. Liu and I took some time to reflect on the lessons we've learned about mentoring. And so we're hoping to impart some of that to you all. And one of the things that we ended our meeting with when we were discussing what we'd present was how we could have made a better opportunity of some of the relationships that we've had. And so we're trying to share that with you all as you all are cultivating some of those relationships now. So the title of our presentation is Making the Most Out of Your Mentoring Relationships. And we have 3 goals for today for you all that we're hoping to accomplish. One is identifying the type of mentorship you need. The second is to empower you to consider the mechanisms available to help you acquire the mentoring relationships you'd like to cultivate. And then the last one is for us to share a little bit about our own mentoring networks as graduate students, and hopefully provide some type of a roadmap as you all are thinking about your own mentoring networks. So the first question that I want to pose to you all is, what do you need? And I want you to think a little bit about that, because oftentimes we start with, I want a mentor. We don't really think about like, well, what am I hoping to gain out of this mentoring relationship? And some of that comes from the assumption that people are taught how to be mentors, right? So my mentor will know what I need. And some people will, right? There's some really great perceptive mentors, but some won't. And so how do you then communicate your needs? And so you start with what are my goals? And so maybe take a few seconds right now to think about what your goals are. I'm guessing that most of you are probably wanting to be faculty and join academia. Those weren't actually necessarily my goals early on. But it was one of the things that I definitely thought about. And so I first started with, okay, so if my goal is to join academia, what do I need then to be successful? And the previous presentation spoke to like publications, right? As well as developing a research skill set. But there are other things that you might need: emotional support, a safe space, an intellectual community, a place to share ideas, right? Maybe you need a role model, someone who is the type of faculty member you want to be, right? Who demonstrates those characteristics that you aspire to. Maybe you need sponsorship. Maybe you need someone who can connect you to the people that you want to meet, right, in your field. And for me, as a first generation college student and faculty member, some of those needs were, I don't even know what I need, right? So some of it was just information. So who do I need to talk to learn what I need to be successful? So there was an information gap for me. And so I thought about who those mentors were that I needed to build and cultivate relationships with to get that information. And so in thinking about information, resources, advice, support, connections, all of those are important needs that will help drive the types of mentors you might cultivate over time. And over time, the nature of those relationships will change. And so just be open to that too. That's the beauty of cultivating mentorship relationships. And I guess the last thing I'll say on this slide is by identifying your needs first before you go into the I need a mentor, it'll be a lot more likely that you'll get that from the mentor that you're trying to cultivate that relationship with. If you can communicate your needs, they can then help fulfill the type of mentor that you want them to be, or tell you, maybe I don't have that skill set, but I can connect you to someone else, and you continue to build that mentoring network.
What we kind of think about is the first thing is, what is a mentoring relationship? So you'll probably run into many types of mentoring relationships, and you probably have also developed some mentoring relationships. So this here, we kind of try to convey some messages to you what a reciprocal mentorship is like. So a mentorship relationship is a close, individualized, and a reciprocal relationship that develops over time. It's not like just, okay, you meet your mentor once and then you have a relationship. It really develops over time, and between a graduate student and a faculty member. It includes both caring and the guidance from the mentoring. So I want you guys to feel empowered. Like, mentoring is not just you listen to your mentor and to do whatever the mentor wanted you to do. We want to share through this presentation and our own experiences that what is your role, what knowledge and skills that you can actually contribute to the mentoring relationship, which probably also benefit your mentor, not just you as the recipient of this, the benefit from this relationship. So I would like to share with you the little process of mentoring relationship development. Like any type of relationship development, it takes time. It takes different stages. So in a mentoring relationship between you and a faculty member or many faculty members, and it started as an initiation. So that means you get to know each other and setting up goals, like Dr. Resume just mentioned, right? You first need to reflect what do you need and what are your goals, and this takes some time. It takes maybe back and forth. You meet with the mentor, and then the second stage is cultivation. And again, it takes time to cultivate a healthy and a reciprocal relationship. And it's an active and a productive stage. So that means after you know each other, after you know what your goal, and express that goal to your mentor, and then it's the stage that what kind of skills and knowledge and experience that you actually receive from this mentoring relationship, and then it's a separation, right? Don't be scared of that. It's natural because you're gonna graduate, right? After you graduate, it's right before after you graduate. Then you'll probably need to rethink what this relationship gonna be. But don't think this is the ending of this relationship. We're both gonna share some of our own experiences, like how we actually continue this mentorship with our graduate faculty member and how helpful that is. So it takes time for you to reflect, okay, again, what is your role at this stage? After you graduate, you become a faculty member in another institution. So that means we'll have a redefinition stage, after you graduate. And then probably it takes another process of like how you're going to initiate and cultivate, and then, probably not separate again. So maybe this process is not necessarily keep going on. Okay. And so since most of us are first generation graduate student, like I grew up in a small village and both my parents never even finished elementary school. And then I moved to the United States knowing nothing about the system here. So it takes a lot of time for us to adjust and to get to know the system and to know how graduate school works. But at the same time, I think we need to be, as a graduate student, as well as a faculty mentor, it's important to be culturally aware. It's just like when we teach, we need to be culturally aware and culturally responsive. That means the mentors need to recognize their own culturally shaped beliefs, perceptions, and the judgments. And sometimes those judgments are deeply rooted in taken for granted and the long-standing socially distorted assumptions. So it's important, like, we all kind of reflect on those distortions or bias. And so mentors also need to recognize and embrace mentees' culturally practices as assets. So that hopefully this process will also encourage the mentees to, revisit who we are, what kind of experiences and the skills coming from our life experiences that are valuable, right? Not just thinking we need to listen to everything and we learn, just everything from courses or mentors. So that's during this process, the mentees need to recognize, your cultural practice as assets and apply them actively in mentoring activities. I see Adrienne. Adriana in this, I had many conversations with her, and I'm really deeply impressed by her experiences working in those was that youth under
juvenile detention center.
Exactly. So her deep knowledge about those inequity, right? How those kids ended up in those detention center, and how actually some of those kids actually, it's not because they don't like learn or they are bad kids. And I think those experiences can inform your research, like how to develop some questions that's deeply based on your experiences. So anyway, so in one word, we encourage you to really reflect on the resources and knowledge you have and how those knowledge can help you to develop some research questions that, your mentors might not have that experience, but you are able to contribute and share in this, relationship. And so what are the roles of a mentor? I think the previous, speakers all have already shared something. And so we'll just quickly go through here. Your mentors will be advisors who have career experience and they share their knowledge. They're also supposed to be supporters, can give you emotional and moral encouragement, and tutors who can provide specific feedback on performance. Sponsors who are sources of information, serve as academic role models, and also, of course, role models who model excellence in teaching, research, and service. So what can you expect from mentoring, right? You already have some experiences in that. So this list give you a little chance to reflect. Okay, have you received this type of mentoring benefit or mentoring experiences? For example, you should expect to acquire a body of knowledge and skills in your specific field. And again, perspectives on how your discipline operates academically, socially, and politically. So this is not just mentoring, maybe not just one tiny aspect, right? That's why also I think we'll share later is you're not going to just look for or dependent on one mentor, right? So multiple mentors might serve different roles based on their experiences and their specific field, right? And deal more confidently with challenging intellectual work. That's through role models, through doing research together, and develop knowledge and skills in conducting research and deliver research results through like conference presentations and academic publications. And also develop techniques for networking and collaborating, and acquire knowledge and skills in job searching and interviews. We'll use some specific examples to see how our own mentor networks provided all or most of this benefits to us. Okay.
And so the next question we'll pose to you all is, how do I get my mentoring needs met? And some of these mentoring needs might be met through like formal organizations, mentoring programs. The Holmes Scholars Network is one, right? But there might be other programs that exist in your program, in your college, in your discipline, in a professional organization that you might be able to tap into. For me, these were really, really important because I'm not the type of person who is going to like work the room and like connect with people and be like, hey, do you want to be my mentor? And so it was through these like formal programs that I was matched with someone, and it was a lot easier for me to first try and get to know them. It was really important for me to have like a relationship with them and for them to know me as a person and then build off of that. This is especially important for me even now as a faculty member. Like, I don't believe in like extractive relationships. And so like, I'm not here just to get what I need and then like, be like, thanks, mentor. Like for me, it was important to build strong, deep relationships because I wanted to have these relationships over time. I didn't just want, and you might, I'll say that for me, but there might be relationships that you have that maybe don't last that long, and that's okay too. And so I don't want to say that those aren't important, right? But for me, all of the mentoring relationships that I'll be talking about in the next 2 slides actually came from like these formal organizations, but they also can come through like informal ways. Like maybe you're at a conference and you're sitting down having coffee, and then the person next to you is someone that's in your discipline, and that you strike up a conversation and then you end up connecting, right? So always look for those informal ways that you might build those types of relationships. And then the other question that you might ask yourself are there peers, faculty currently in your network, right? So people that you already know and that you already have relationships with that you might just cultivate deeper relationships with in terms of a mentoring relationship. And I include peers here because when I share a little bit about my own mentoring network, my peers were actually some of the stronger mentors for me. And so these folks then went on to become my colleagues, and we've been able to now like serve as references for each other as we go on the job market. So those have blossomed into something completely different than what I expected and what I expected early on when we started those relationships. And then the last thing that I'll share with you is ask for what you need. And it might feel uncomfortable, but I've actually found that students who on this other end, right? Students who ask me what they need, it makes it a lot easier to make it happen, right? And sometimes I may not have, again, like that skill set, or I might not have the money, but I know who to ask to get the money if they need to go to a conference, right? So it's important to just share what you need and to feel comfortable, especially for like student faculty relationships. That's like our job, right? To like meet your needs. So feel comfortable asking us. And sometimes, again, we may not be the right people, but we can connect you to other people who can help you in those ways. All right.
Okay. So then to summarize, what is your role, or what are your roles in this mentoring relationship? So I think previous speakers all mentioned like be resilient, be proactive. And so we provide a few items here as well. So be proactive, ask, right? Ask if somebody couldn't help you, they might be able to relate, connect you with somebody else, and reflect on your needs, like we just mentioned. Start from reflect on your needs, but at the same time, really set to reflect on your strengths. What is yours? What are your strengths, and what are the experiences that you have might be able to contribute in your research and in the collaborative research that you have with your mentor or your peers. And so the next step is to really your role is to communicate your needs and the strengths to your mentors or peers. And the next one is find multiple mentors, right? Again, because we just shared, like during this mentoring relationship, you're expected to learn about the field, about specific research skills, about networking development. If you're depending on one mentor, and it, either due to the time constraint, mentors are mentoring many students, they might not be able to provide everything you are expecting. So that's why developing multiple mentoring relationships is necessary to help you, and have realistic expectations of your mentors, right? And be responsible, of course, if there's a collaborative project going on, and they should be very clear responsibilities and tasks, right? So that means you take care of the part that you're assigned to, and bring your contribution to the team, and receive criticism in a professional manner. I remember Dr. Is that Matute? I think she also commented that, and then show commitment to the profession. Next one, yes.
So now we're gonna kind of shift and share a little bit more about like our own personal mentoring networks. And I'll start by first sharing that when I started my graduate program, I expected to find like what I'll call the magical Latina mentor, right? I was going to find a Latina faculty member who's going to work with me, care about me, and build me into like this shining star. And then I went to Urbana-Champaign for graduate school, and there weren't any Latina faculty. So then I was like, okay, I need to figure out why I'm looking for this Latina mentor, and what, and also just think about like who I can go to find those emotional, social, cultural, and professional needs, right? That I had. And in truth, the mentors that I'm going to talk about today don't share my racial or cultural background at all. And I think that was a learning opportunity for me, because I in undergrad I had a Latina mentor, and I thought that those were the people who were going to want to cultivate me, right, as a scholar, and that wasn't true at all. And so I guess I'll share. I'll reiterate Dr. Liu's point. Don't expect to find one person, and there hasn't been one person who can meet all of those needs and cultivate the strengths that I did have. And also think about the other part, and which is the mentor role, and that oftentimes we ask the same folks over and over again. Sometimes there's like 3 like Latina faculty in a college of ed, but all Latina students will go, or Latino students will go to those 3 Latina faculty. And so there's also the other part, that when we tax those faculty into these like mentoring relationships without having a clear sense of what we need, and it's just, to have those relationships, oftentimes mentoring relationships aren't valued for tenure, right? So know this both as a mentee, but also when you become faculty members, be really thoughtful around the time that you ask from your mentor. So anytime I went to go, so I'll talk a little bit about my graduate advisor. Anytime that I went to meet with him, I had an agenda set around the things that I wanted to talk about. And sometimes we would also just meet for coffee, or we would meet for lunch, and that was okay too, right? But it was always just being mindful that he had 30 other advisees, right? Bill Trent is like a huge name in the field, wonderful mentor who I learned a lot from, and someone that I emulate in many ways, the way that I engage in mentoring relationships. But I was also just really mindful that there were other students who also needed that. And I didn't want to take all of that time, right? And he was always willing to give the time. That was the other part. And I think some of that was because, he was further on in his career. One of the things I didn't get from that mentoring relationship, though, is that I didn't publish with my mentor. He was ready to retire. He wasn't thinking about publishing. And so I had to build other types of relationships to build that skill set and to get those types of opportunities. That's not to say that he didn't, support me in building like those research skills. He was always really helpful in like making it happen. Like anytime I wanted to go to a conference, he was able to connect me to resources. So that was, or if I wanted to go to a training, he would help kind of bridge that. When I went on the job market, he was the person who, and he knew me as an undergrad. I met him through the Summer Research Opportunity Program. I think someone asked about leaving. So I'm from California originally, and I left California to go to Illinois for my graduate program. And part of that was because of the Summer Research Opportunity Program, where I did undergraduate research with my now graduate doctoral advisor. And I ended up going to graduate school and working with him. And so he knew me for a really long time. And so when it came to me going on the job market, he was my reference, both when I moved to take my first job at UConn, and then when I moved out here to UNLV. And so he could speak to every part of who I was as a professional. I served as his TA. I shared with you that my initial goal was not to be a faculty member. And so he actually challenged me to consider what it would mean for me to be in the classroom, because I was afraid of public speaking. I did not want to be in the classroom. And so he was like, okay, well, be my TA for the semester. If you decide this is not for you, I will support you in whatever trajectory you go. He's like, but there's a need for faculty like you in academia, right? And so he challenged me to like face my fears in a lot of ways. And I served as a TA, and then from there, I ended up applying. I did enjoy teaching. It felt a little uncomfortable, but he helped me work through that. And he also shared that he felt uncomfortable when he first started teaching, right? So there was also that level of vulnerability because of the relationship that we had, to share that when he initially became a faculty member, that was something that took practice, and that was okay. And so it felt really good to hear that be validated by someone who had a very similar experience. He was also first generation. He was a faculty member of color, and he was engaged in equity-based research. So that was really important. And he also was really important to connecting me to people. And that's because of, his productivity, his stature in the field. He knew a lot of folks. And so he helped me build those relationships. One of those relationships was with Dr. Casey George Jackson, who was actually his graduate student when I was doing SROP. And I worked with her. She became a mentor for me. And then when I came in as a graduate student, I worked on a research project, and then she ended up being the program coordinator. She was like a postdoc on the project. And she helped read my work. She was one of the folks who read my work. She helped share opportunities that she thought that I would qualify for. So there was a NSF graduate research fellowship that she shared with me. We worked through several drafts, and it was funded. And so I was one of the first folks in the College of Ed at Urbana-Champaign to get this really prestigious award. And she also actually was one of the folks who sat with me to teach me how to code, because I was very quantitative early on in my career. And so she actually walked me through okay, well, this is how you do it in Stata, right? And I published with her. That's the other thing. She was early on in her career. She wanted to go the faculty route. And so I ended up publishing 4 journal articles, 2 pre-tenure, two before I went on to become faculty. And then we kind of held on to 2 more until after I started my faculty job, because it is important for pieces to hit when you're on the tenure track, as opposed to wanting to get everything out before you go. And involved me in grant writing opportunities. So I learned how to write a grant proposal. And I've been pretty successful now as a faculty member. So those are the types of skills I was able to cultivate with that relationship. And she's now a faculty. And actually the funny part is that we actually both were competing for jobs when I went on the job market and she was on the job market. And so we often were, and not just Dr. George Jackson, but Dr. Lane as well, we were often finalists for the same positions. But we were there, we would do mock interviews together. We would exchange notes. It was very communal. I only needed one job. She only needed one job, right? So we wanted to help support each other as we were making that transition. And then the last relationship that I'll talk about is Dr. Tanisha Lane. And I actually met her through a graduate program I created as a graduate student. It was through Division J. I created this like peer mentoring match program, and I matched myself with her. And it was pretty funny because we like both showed up for coffee, and it was supposed to be like there was like a senior mentor and then like a junior mentor, but it ended up being that it didn't work out that way. But we were actually right at the same point, which has actually worked out really well for us. We have very similar research interests. We were also in the same stage. We were both writing our dissertation. We went on the job market together. And we both ended up getting faculty positions. We would talk about that experience as women of color in the classroom. And, when we would get like our initial evaluations, like we would talk, and there was a lot of emotional support in that I didn't initially expect when I started this mentoring relationship. We write together, we share work that we're not actually working on together, and it's reciprocal, right? So like I'll share a piece, she'll share a piece, I'll give her feedback, she'll give me feedback. I see an opportunity that makes sense for me, for my research, and it also makes sense for her. So I share it with her, right? And we're always looking to support each other. And this is why we wanted to stress the reciprocal nature of these mentoring relationships, and we continue to support each other. And so we both, started our routes in academia at one institution, and we've since both left. And we both serve as references for each other when we did leave. We both became moms pre-tenure. We both are pretty good at getting grants, and so we support each other in that as well. And so these relationships have evolved over time, whereas first it was, okay, I need to get a job. Now it's, okay, now I need to publish. And then it was, okay, now I'm going up for tenure. I share I've just submitted my file for tenure. I shared everything with her so she could give me feedback, but also so she could have like a roadmap that she could start thinking about and building, since she's taking a couple more years before she goes up for tenure. And so all of that, I think, speaks to the evolution of those relationships. And I talk about 3 relationships because of time, but there are other folks who make up this mentoring network. And I'm really grateful because as a first generation college student, as a Latina, I think the folks who are there to support and build you up may be difficult to find. And I think for me, it was important to find folks I could be vulnerable with, folks I could trust. And I think Dr. Matute talked a little bit about this, sharing your work. There have been folks who have taken my work and published it. So just be careful, because I think oftentimes we think that everybody here is for us, right? They want us to succeed. And academia can be also a scary place where, folks are there for themselves. And so it's very competitive. And so just keep that in mind. But all of these relationships have shaped the type of mentor I want to be. And I'm still learning as a faculty member. But I think I've had really good examples. And I hope to continue learning to be how to be a better mentor for my students. All right, Dr. Liu, I'll stop talking.
Thank you. That's awesome. That's very touching too. Okay, so I'm gonna share similarly how my mentoring network supported me over the time, starting as a graduate student. So my chair of my graduate study is Dr. Ken Zeichner. So it's a long story. We met, I was the master's student back in China at that time. I was not even in teacher education. And I didn't know that Dr. Zeichner was basically one of the leading scholars in the United States in teacher education. So accidentally I went to his talk that at that time Beijing Normal University organized to invited. It's all big names. Of course, I was not in the field. I was in TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language. So I just bumped into this their little conference, and then I was very impressed by his talk at that time. And so I asked a question. I don't remember specifically what it is, and he seemed to be interested, and he was asking about me. And I said, well, I was applying for doctor programs, but I was applying for majorly second English as a second language, because that's the field that was closely related to me, even though I taught many years back in China at that time. And then he was saying, come to Madison. I said, where is Madison? At that point. And then I started to search, and then I applied to UW-Madison, and I was accepted. So coming to a different country, I had no expectation about what mentoring is. I had no expectation. I didn't know my needs. And it's just like you walk into a totally new field, not knowing what everything. But Dr. Zeichner really guided me into the field. He is really truly the mentor that show me if you go back to our earlier slides, right? One of the expectation you can have is to get the introduction about the field, and especially how this field is socially, politically, culturally situated. So he is exactly that person, because that's his whole life of research about teaching and teacher education, how teaching and teacher education is situated in the social, political, cultural context in the United States and even the world. And he also does a lot of global stuff. So he is the person that I'm the go-to person to him, if I want to know about the field. And also he, like Dr. Rincon, you mentioned, your advisor is at his, very, he's not at the early stage of mentoring. He has so many students, right? And so I also need to respect his time and his space. I can't just walk into his office and to bother him, because every year he will have 4 to 5 new students, and them. So that means anytime he has more than 20 in the row waiting for his support. So, but from him, I really get to know about teacher education as a field, and that's the most important thing, is knowing your field and where you are in that field. And that's exactly the mentor he provided. And he also really lead me into the research. For example, the first summer he asked me, well, do some literature review on this, and then I have no idea. So I found the articles, and then he actually supported me. Okay, how to read the abstract, how to organize the abstract into different ideas, and blah, blah, blah. So I used that opportunity and to learn. And he said, well, you should submit an AERA proposal next year. So that's how I started to go to AERA immediately after I get into my doctoral program. So I was able to use that summer little research project. I worked for him to write a proposal about e-portfolio and teacher reflection, which became one of my major line of research And so anyway, so he is that person there. But at the same time, when I started to take other courses, then I found Dr. Thomas, Michael Thomas. He was teaching on, his area is educational technology. So I was taking a course with him and the grounded theory method. I was fascinated by his, personality, his warmth, and his inspiration. So then during this coursework, I just say, hey, I'm writing this paper. Can you take a look, if I can develop as a course paper for your class? And he loved it. And he said, well, we can write together. And then, so anyway, through that kind of very more constant communication, because he had fewer, he was an assistant professor at that time. He had fewer students, he had more time, and he was much younger. And so I was able to walk into his office saying, okay, look at this part. I'm just really stuck, right? And he said, okay, calm down. Let's sit down for 20 minutes and let's write together. And sometimes he would just grab a book. Let's read this paragraph, and then just how to put that paragraph in, integrate into our writing. So through this very friendly and encouraging mentorship, I developed my second research line, which is educational technology and teacher education. And this mentorship also continued. And so we published an journal article right before I graduated, and then right now we're also co-writing together, and we sometimes do journal reviews for each other, because I would invite him to review journal articles for the journal I was co-editing as an associate editor and stuff like that. He would recommend his current students to come to me for some advice. So this relationship again didn't stop at my graduation. I want to go back to Dr. Zakiner a little bit. This mentor relationship didn't stop after I graduated. So when I started to look for jobs, I just go to him and say, Ken, I'm interviewing for this job. Can you give me some advice? And he would sit down and spend an hour with me going through, okay, these are the expectations and stuff like that, in addition to writing me the letter of recommendation. And when I interview for this job, we again spend time, how to respond to questions and stuff like that. So it's just very, very supportive. And so talking about networking, right? So Dr. Thomas, when we went to conferences together, he introduced me to Dr. Blanca and Dr. Ge. Ge Shen is a Chinese American professor, Dr. Blanc from Indiana Bloomington, and Dr. Ge from University of Oklahoma. So they both are in educational technology. So that's the two mentors that developed through Dr. Thomas. And so Dr. Blanc is a very well known, very networking person. Anywhere, every conference he goes, he has many mentors or colleagues together. So he is really that go-to person in terms of getting what is going on in educational technology. And so when I did my first job interview, he shared everything he has through his, he had developed websites, like the teaching resources and materials. And he spent an hour on the phone for me to coach me. And we didn't publish together, but he is never, he's always giving. He just give you everything he has. And Dr. Ge as well. So she became one of my references. And we didn't publish together, but still we go to conferences together. And I've reviewed journal articles for her journal is a project-based, the International Journal of Project-Based Learning. And based on my review, and she is suggesting maybe you can, develop a special issue on this topic. It seems like you know much about it. So that's, again, these are the opportunities that you're coming from this mentoring relationship. And again, it's a reciprocal. You are able to help them not just they keep, giving you something. And the last one is Dr. Anita Ball from Stanford University. And I would like to highlight that how she serves as a role model and a mentor. After I become a assistant professor, I developed this mentor relationship after I came to UNLV. And then I was so blessed to be able to co-teach and co-publish and co-present with her. So we ended up publishing 2 articles together and presented together. And she was towards retiring, but during this process of co-teaching and going to conferences, I just see how sort of like almost like I feel like, if you know her, she served as an AERA president in 2012, I believe, and a very, very big name in the field, right? But her personality is so warm, welcoming, just willing to listen to you. Academically, I would never approach her status, but she just served to me as a role model, like how doing academic research, but can also be a good, fantastic person. So not just, focusing on publish, but she is the truly human being that showing the caring to every single student. So I remember 2 years ago, I went to Stanford to present at her RIO conference. So the RIO conference is about race, language, and inequity in education, and one of the attendees is just a undergrad student from, I don't remember, University of Oregon, or I don't remember now. They didn't know each other, but Dr. Ball invited her to the dinner and listened to her what her research is about, and give her the phone number and the email address, saying, okay, if you have any questions, I will be happy to respond to you. And it just, by no means like we have to be that, be that generous, but it just gives me the image like, okay, being in the academia, being productive is one thing, also being a real true human being, it's another thing. So I just feel like, okay, these examples, these mentors really served a different, served different purposes, and guided me, in their own way, that benefit me, and it just only make me a more sort of prepared for this field. I'm gonna stop here. Should I stop share?
There's one more slide that we'll share with you all.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yes. Just a couple of resources that we've found helpful. There's a book, How to Write an Article in 12 Weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of walks you through the steps. The National Center for Faculty Diversity, and there's another D that I don't remember what it stands for, and Development, I think, is an institute that we actually have membership through UNLV, so you can access their their writing. They have writing boot camps, 14-day stuff, and they have different professional development webinars that you can participate in as a graduate student. And they also have stuff related to writing your dissertation that other folks have found helpful. I've attended some webinars. They have they actually also support the whole mentoring network map, and there's actually, this is a link to the mentoring network map. So you all can start thinking about what how you might cultivate that mentoring network. And they talk about different areas as a faculty member you should be thinking about having a mentor in. And so just other resources that were helpful for us that we wanted to share with you all. But we forgot to include a question slide, and I think we have a couple minutes for questions. And so I guess we'll stop talking and allow you all to ask us any questions you might have.
I do have a quick question. So what have you, I know earlier, Dr. Rincon, you talked about not being the person who really explicitly will ask for to enter into a mentorship relationship. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think we should ask directly to individuals that we think would be a good fit, or check to see if someone would be a good mentor? Should we just explicitly ask, or do you just kind of like naturally let it happen?
I know people who have done both. And I think it's also like your level of comfort. I would have a sense of what type of mentorship you're looking for, or what you're hoping to get out of that relationship when you do, set up a meeting to talk with that faculty member, or even a peer, right? Maybe at another institution, have a sense of what you're hoping to cultivate, right? But yeah, if you feel comfortable asking like, hey, do you want to be my mentor? Like, do it. I don't think anyone's going to be like, I can't believe you asked me that, But for me, it just didn't come like, I felt really awkward doing it. And so I couldn't do it, right? Because it didn't feel like right for me. And so you have to find what feels right for you and use that as an entry point. I always find students who have asked to meet with me, they'll be like, I just want to get to know you, get to know your research. And they'll read something that I published, and or they'll just come and be like, I want to take your class, or I'm in your class. That's like a really great entry point to starting and cultivating a relationship. I've also been connected to students from my mentors who are like, I have a student who now wants to go to a doc program, and I've told them about you. And so I now have mentees from my mentor, right? So sometimes it happens where like someone's just like, you need to meet so-and-so, and they'll connect you. And those are like I think those are like the easiest, like mentoring relationships. I'll be like, I was just talking to one of my mentors from grad school. He's like, I have this like Latina here in Chicago, and I'm going to connect her with you and Erin Castro so that she also like cultivates this like Latina network, and she wants to go to grad school. So I'm going to connect you guys. And so I think some folks will do that for you, especially when you have a mentor who you've built that relationship with. They'll connect you in those ways. But I don't think there's anything wrong with like doing it yourself and asking straight up like, hey, would you be willing to mentor me? And this is what I'm hoping to cultivate, what I'm hoping to learn or strengthen. I really like this particular methodology. I know you do it, and I want to learn more. Is there anything I can help you with that you're working on? So, yeah. And Dr. Liu might have a different response, but I think.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think it's interesting now reflecting on my own experiences. I never directly asked. It's just maybe because of me coming in without any expectation or knowledge about what mentoring is. So it just happened more sort of naturally through taking classes, right? So I think while you take different courses, that's I think it's a great opportunity for you to really get to know a professor, and then through your course projects, you get to know about yourself, if that, that field is of your interest or not. Like my, second mentor, Dr. Thomas, in technology and teacher education, that happened to be one of my interests. So it just happened, organically, right? So I never asked him, just because of my interest and me writing a paper that he happened to be interested in. So we ended up collaborating in the paper. So my suggestion is whenever you take a course, really take it seriously, not just finishing that course, get an A, like Dr. Matute really said, right? Not just thinking it's a checklist. It's really get to know the professor, know the specific field related to that course, and think, okay, is this the field? Is this something I'm interested in? Is this something I'm strong with, right? I have something I'm able to develop and contribute. So courses, yeah.
And I'll just add one thing to that, because one of the things I didn't share in my story was that one of the reasons why I think my mentoring relationships have been so successful is because I always showed up. I always came prepared. I did my work. I knew that for the mentors who I was, they were assistant professors, I was still a grad student. Like, it was important for them to publish. And so I came prepared, right? And I think that went a really long way for them to then, expend their social capital on me, right? Because they don't have to, is
exactly.
But I think that's really, really important. So just always come and do your best. And that doesn't mean you can't make mistakes. Always ask questions. Like, I think early on, I wouldn't ask any questions. I would be like, I don't want them to think I'm like stupid, right? But that actually hurt me over time. So I think I eventually learned that I had to ask when I didn't know something. And I think that also served me well.
Yeah, I would add that's also the opportunity for the potential mentor to get to know you. And it's a communication, right? All those office hours, I always tell my doc students, office hours are designed for you. It's not like you need to have a specific question or you're in trouble and then you go to office hour. Just take advantage of that office hour. Just say, I have this idea I really want to share, or, I just want to, share a little bit more about myself, or I read your piece and I want to hear a little bit more about what you mean. Like, so office hours is a way for you to develop some relationship with the professor, and then that's a foundation of mentoring relationships.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you both, Dr. Liu and Dr. Rincon. Something that they both emphasized, and I thought about it as Dr. Matute spoke, because I remember when I first came to UNLV in 2015, I was invited to speak to the Holmes Scholars Group about mentoring. And I remember she asked me later on because of something that I said, and it was about sharing. Not everyone wants to share, and that's something I learned the hard way. Mentors are people who want to share, and it is reciprocal. Even as a student, you can share something. I'll give you an example. I had, and she later became a Holmes Scholar of the Master's when she was getting her master's degree. She was a teacher in Clark County. She was in teaching and learning. Camille Unko is her name. Some of you might know her if you were here at that point. She's now a doctoral student at the University of Washington. She sent an email to one of the deans saying, I would like to know if there are any faculty who conduct research around English language learning. I would like to be involved in any kind of research project, and I don't care if I'm paid or not. And the dean sent her email to me. I met her. I said, in preparation for meeting with you, could you please send me your CV and could you tell me what you're interested in? I found out that she had been a Fulbright scholar. I found out that when in her undergraduate program, she had developed a course. She had a long trajectory of reaching out to people and creating opportunities for herself. So she worked with me, not being paid until I had money to just give to her, for 2 years. And now on my research projects, I write her in my grants. We continue to stay in touch with each other. That's one example. You often meet people at conferences because in conferences, you are interacting with people that share your interests. I was at a conference in Bologna, of all places, and I was getting my dessert in line, and someone said, Dr. Durodola, and I didn't know anybody would know me in Bologna. She lived in Las Vegas. She was from Mumbai, India. She sent an email to Dr. Alain Bengochea saying, I'm at this conference in, it was the Early Childhood Research Association, which is like the largest early childhood conference in Europe. She said, I'm here, I'm all alone, but I went through the roster and I see there's a faculty member here from UNLV. Can you tell me how to get in touch with her? He forwarded the email. I read the email and I said, maybe we connect, but lo and behold, serendipity, I'm getting my dessert. She had gone online, read my bio, found my photograph. And so she saw me in line and approached me and said, I sent an email to Dr. Bengochea. I'm the person. So now she started working with me, not paid, conducting literature reviews because we're both interested in multilingualism. So we've been working together now for 2 years. I now write her into my grants because she's now a doctoral student at the University of Bath in England, although she resides here. So this is how life revolves and how career trajectories evolve. Some things we are planned out because we have a plan. We figure out what it is that we need. And somehow, sometimes along the path, we connect with people who have our shared interests and they like to share, because there are others who share an interest and they don't like to share, and some like to take. We've all had experiences of we communicate an idea and lo and behold, somebody has written a grant around our idea. So I've learned not to do that anymore. So life gives you the opportunity to plan a path, but then you're flexible along the path as you meet people. I have many mentors that I've met at a conference who, after my presentation, said, I don't exactly agree with everything. I'd like to give you feedback. Oh, really? Here's my card. Here's my card. We stay in touch for years. They invite me then to present in spaces that they have access to. And I continue to send things to them. The other word I wanted to emphasize that Dr. Liu and Dr. Rincon both emphasized was this idea of reciprocity. That something is reciprocal. It's give and take. It's not just taking on your end. Professors love to work with students who have read an article that they've written, who know something about their work or their methodology, who knows something about them in the field. They are more willing to make a commitment to mentor them because they know that they are serious-minded people and who would not want to have a hand in shaping the career of a new faculty member that's being formed in a doctoral program. So thank you very much, both of you, for sharing some bulleted points. I really appreciated the bulleted points on what is your or what are your roles as a mentee, because you have roles. And one important one, which will serve you throughout academia, is the idea of showing up prepared. Showing up, sending a bulleted list. I'd like to discuss these 3 things today. You do that throughout your academic career. Whenever I meet with my department chair, I went in, typed out my list of things. This is what I've accomplished, and this is what I'd like to talk about. I did that every year when I was at Texas A&M. I wasted no time because I know he had no time to waste. Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I want to make one comment on that, being prepared for the meetings, right? So Gloria Lassembilens at UW-Madison, and she likes to write those tips about mentoring. So for a long time, she wrote those tips on Facebook. So what strikes me one is she said once, I'm not your friend. You come into my office for office time. You don't even have a pen. You don't even have a piece of paper. I'm talking to you. You're not even taking notes. Don't forget that we are not chatting just for chatting. I was thinking, wow, that's very, very important, right? So you got to take some notes. And nowadays we have a computer. You don't have a piece of paper or pen anymore. But the point is, no matter how smart you are, you got to write some points that talked us through this meeting, and even your own ideas, right? You need to put it down so that you can bring back and then to continue to develop. So being prepared. And
I think the last point that I took away from their conversation is you never know where an opportunity might appear. So, for example, when Camille came for the first time to sit with me and I'm talking, she pulled out of her bag. She had a notebook. She had her pen. I wasn't asking her to take notes. This was just an introduction. She pulled out her notebook and she started to write. And that was her pattern whenever we met. we would say, let's review what our tasks are. And she outlined them. She could tell me what the priority was, so I could understand what her work ethic was. That's what mentoring is about. It's not just developing deep content knowledge, it's helping you to, again, I use the word routine, but to develop a work ethic, one that supports you in the doctoral pathway, that can be transitioned and used in real life in academia. Okay. So in closing today, and we had, again, in our face-to-face plans, we had planned a little social afterwards with food and what have you, so that everyone could meet each other, but that's not going to happen today. But what I'd like to know, I shared 2 reflection questions from the very beginning. If we could see those very quickly, I'm just going to wrap things up here. I asked you to reflect on your current mentorships, thinking about what additional mentor networks and relationships you need. Every presenter has talked about you need to first figure out what is it that you need. Do I need help with the design of something? Or do I need what is it called? Because Dr. Rincon talked about this. It's a person that you just share ideas with. I have a few senior faculty members at other universities. They're idea people. When I make an appointment with them, I'm sharing my ideas and I need them to expand them for me. So you have to know, what are your needs? And then where can you find these networks and partner relationships? Dr. Rincon suggested you can find some of these opportunities in professional organizations. AERA specifically has mentoring opportunities for doctoral students. And I know other professional organizations have spaces for doctoral students to meet together as they're being mentored and guided in terms of publication, dissertation, just a whole array of topics. I also asked you to reflect on your doctoral path. I asked you to think about what are some potential goals that you can accomplish as you navigate your doctorate that are related to publications, conference presentations, and teaching. Each presenter has touched upon something related to publications, conference presentations, and teaching. Sometimes even teaching opportunities evolve in a serendipitous manner. That's how mine evolved, my first one, teaching around observation research when I was a doctoral student. And then how can you overcome obstacles in accomplishing these goals? None of these presenters have left us with the impression that the path is smooth. I remember when I defended my dissertation, I had someone on my committee, and I didn't know at the time. I learned a couple of years later, he's really rough. I remember him saying, I want you to do some work on A, B, and C. We'd like to see this because you haven't jumped over the hurdle yet. That's how he phrased it, that this was my hurdle and he created it for me and I had not jumped over it yet. So this path is not always smooth. There are things in life that could take us away from the path. There are relationships that we have on campus, things that work, things that don't work, and you have to be able to be resilient and to recover and to get back to your goal. But I think each of these presenters have talked about our needs for social emotional support. And peers play a huge role in mentoring us. I remember as a doctoral student in writing my dissertation, I came to a point that I just thought I couldn't figure it out. I reached out to a friend who had already graduated, and she said, I still think about this because I still use this advice. Pretend that you are an attorney and you are making your case. Now you develop your case. That is the dissertation because you are the expert, you are the attorney, and think about how you go about proving your points in a way that is credible. That was from a peer. She helped me to write my dissertation. So I'd like for you to think about, as we are bringing things to a close now, is there something new that you're taking away from the presentation today? If you could just share it very briefly with us.
That was something that I guess haven't had others present to me, like when I was getting myself started here at UNLV. So yeah, it's good to know about, though.
Good to know early, so you can start thinking of making a plan, Joseph. Yeah, great. Someone else, something new that you're taking away today.
For me, going back to what I said originally about, my voice and kind of getting out, challenging my fears now, and being willing to put in a conference proposal, be willing to put in a publication, have somebody critique the writing. And no, it's not who you are, it's just the aspect of you getting to your larger goals. So just being willing to take the risk. And I think Dr. Rincon was the one who highlighted on just facing your fears. And I just wrote that down.
Mm-hmm. And I think, April, I like that you bring that up, because several individuals have said that they were timid, that they were shy. I'm one of those. I could not see myself, going into an AERA conference, which is huge, and being vocal in one of the SIGs. That took some practice. That took some courage. But in doing that, you make a friend. You meet someone who's also timid, who says, "Oh, I'm glad you said that. I couldn't have said it as well as you did, or I was too scared to say that." So the courage part, courage is very important in life, and courage is very important in doctoral studies. You have to take the risk and show courage. Thanks. Someone else, what are you taking away from today?
I was going to add to take advantage of this collective group that we've been invited to be a part of. Because we've seen, I think some of our fears, we can kind of put them to ease, because this network is already filled with individuals who are willing to provide mentorship, who are willing to share. And, that's what I'm getting. So really take advantage of the network, and also to connect with other scholars to be able to get that experience and collaborate on presentations. So that's what I'm taking away from today.
Okay, so the conversation today should help everyone to feel comfortable about how we're going to navigate across the years in which we are together. It is a space in which we want you to feel comfortable, and it is a space in which we network you with other people. That's very important. Great. Someone else who'd like to share something they're taking away today.
I don't know if it was new, but it was definitely a reminder. I feel like being in COVID, we forget a lot of things, and I know right now, being in my last semester, I feel like very by myself, very isolated, and so this served as a good reminder to know that we do have our Holmes network, we do have our mentors to kind of reconnect with, and I'm actually looking forward to being back on campus here soon, just to be able to have that kind of communication with my colleagues that I've missed out on this past year. So.
Okay, great. Dr. Alain Bengochea, Dr. Katrina Liu, Dr. Blanca Rincon. So you've met Dr. Liu and Dr. Rincon today, and then Dr. Margarita Huerta. So again, I want to thank these mentors for the work that they will provide, the support for 2022 and 2023. And I'm looking forward to a good year. I thank everyone for coming. Our monthly meetings will be on Tuesdays. I think the time was at 9:00 because I sent the emails out, and we will probably start in September. I'll take this as our first meeting for August so that I'm not overtaxing people, but I'll send out an email so that you are prepared and know what our focus will be in September, which will be making sure that you are able to write a proposal for the Holmes Scholars Conference. that will be held in New Orleans next spring. So thank you for the students who showed up early on a Saturday morning when classes have not started yet. Thank you for that dedication, because I'm paying attention to that. I'm paying attention to that. Joseph, I will stay in contact with you because I've got some ideas for you. And I will see the Holmes Scholars. I'll give you the date for our Tuesday in September. I'm so thankful for all the presenters who are able to make time to be with us and to share what has worked for them, share what has not worked for them, and to place themselves in a vulnerable spot. Please make sure that you reach out to these individuals if you'd like. And again, these presentations will be posted on the Holmes Scholars website. Thank you also to Young Bach, who was able to provide all the technical assistance, who is able to help us to transition from meeting in person to meeting remotely. Also, I'm thanking Dr. Ms. Shana McNeely, who's the executive assistant in the dean's office, who had to work really fast to make today happen and to make sure that everyone had been notified. She had planned a beautiful space for us to meet with lots of food and snacks and gifts. And those gifts, she will send an email. These are gifts for the students. She will send an email to all of you about how to access those gifts. Those are gifts of appreciation to show that we're just so happy that you made time to take part in this professional learning experience today. So with that said, goodbye. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the weekend. And some of you, see you in class. Thank you very much.